Welcome to Aspen Ignites, Conversations to Build a Better World, a series from the Aspen Institute that brings together thoughtful people with diverse backgrounds and points of view. How do you build stronger communities? Youth volunteerism is one way, and giving young people a seat at the table. In this episode, James Wales, Executive Director of the Aspen Institute Program on Philanthropy and Social Innovation, speaks with Kim Cortes-Martinez and Breanna Wollman, who are both 2023 Bezos scholars.
If we could just start with your own experience in volunteerism, how you've seen it build community.
Yeah, so I've volunteered since a young age. I was in a aquatic swim team, competitive swim team, since I was, I think, 8 years old, for about 5 years. And every single summer, I would volunteer at the hospitality center, and it'd be mostly parents and then a couple students, right? And that really enacted my love for volunteering because I was like, I'm devoting my time to making sure people are fed, I'm preparing the food, and I'm learning on my own, right? And so through my life, I've looked for opportunities where I can volunteer and help my community, and also I can learn a little bit more about myself, become a better citizen, a better person. And I think since reaching high school. I started high school in the pandemic. It was a bit challenging navigating clubs and volunteering from a distance. And, my dad is immunocompromised, so I was hyper aware of the pandemic. But the last year or so, I've engaged in so many groups, and I've really tried to empower other youth to volunteer, even in small ways. In my school, clubs are a huge thing, specifically affinity clubs. I'm the president of our Mecha Club, which is called, the acronym is Movimientos Estudiantil Chicanextlan, and it's for Latino students. And we host club events like dances and assemblies, and we've seen such a spike in even wall decor. Students feeling proud to be in the space and feeling seen. And I think that's the biggest impact that I've seen recently in my life is just students feeling proud of their space because they know, hey, I made that. I put that up there, or I was there when my friend did that. And they see it for a long time. They see pictures of people that look like them doing good work, and they feel inspired to do more.
So Breanna, what about you? What has been your kind of early engagement in volunteerism?
Same with Kim. Volunteerism has been a huge part of my life, but it didn't jump right until high school started, where the resources and opportunities started to occur. Right, so I'm the president of my school's Future Business Leaders of America Club, and every single year we get the opportunity to address a need in our community with the community service project. And the one we did last year was called Project Red, where we addressed period poverty within our community. We ended up raising over $1,000 worth of pads and tampons for women at our local domestic abuse shelter, and 100% of the people that ran our event, where we did the project drive, were under the age of 18. And seeing the power that came from individuals not only using their voice, reaching out to make that change, but the results that came from it and the lives that were changed was truly amazing.
Some of the research we've supported at the Aspen Institute shows that that those who engage in volunteering or giving in some form of social engagement and sort of citizen engagement, that they are the folks who are most likely to vote for the first time. If they volunteered for the first time this year, they're most likely to register to vote. The same thing is true of jury service. You've served on a jury, and you then have a sense, oh my gosh, I can make a difference, and in fact, as a citizen, I should. So when we look at you and we hear about you, and the reason that the Bezos family has honored you for this role is that sense that you are the future of our democracy, of a democracy that works. And that trust is built there. It is built in community. And the capacity to self-govern is also built in community. I wanted to ask you about kind of the power of youth voice. Where have you seen, you've each got very specific experiences. Where have you seen that when voice is experienced, something else happens? it affects the way you look at other things. So I'm going to start with you, Kim.
Yeah, so recently in the past summer, in summer of 2022, I had the honor of engaging in the first participatory budgeting cycle for the state of Oregon, and through an organization called Youth Voice, Youth Vote, Participatory Budgeting for Oregon. And we were a collective of youth between the ages of 14 to 24 that put together the rule book for future generations, keeping in mind what future generations are going to want and how that might be different from what we may want and the problems that we may face now. And I think through that space, we came from such different backgrounds. We all lived in districts 24 and 25 in Oregon. And that's where the cycle took place. And we just wrapped up the cycle a couple weeks ago, actually, which was amazing to be a part of, having youth vote and have $500,000 put into a community project that they feel passionate about, right? You can't vote yet for your governor or your mayor, right? But you can vote for a project that's going to help your community, right? If we need a recreational center, if we need, we addressed homelessness in Portland, right outside of where I live. Homelessness is a big issue. It's one of the biggest issues in our state, and we have the biggest unhoused population in all of the United States, right? So that's something that hits close to home for all of us, and something we wanted to ensure that we saw everyone and that we had the voice of everyone and made sure, you know, even the youth that may not know that the cycle was happening, right? We're keeping them in mind, and we're trying to do what they would want. And I saw so many people show up as volunteers, so many people spread the message, so many teachers feel so excited and invigorated by this experience, and it brought me such immense joy.
So I listen to that and I think about the fact that the U.S. Congress had one heck of a time building a federal budget. It sounds like if you're the future members of Congress, you'll do a little better at it. One of the things that happens, though, with participatory budgeting is that the art of compromise is essential to democratic process. There's less and less enthusiasm about compromise, that folks tend to sort of look at a compromise and say, that's capitulation.
Yeah.
That isn't democracy, that's capitulation. How do those young people who are part of that process deal with the need to trade a bit, to say, well, actually, your priority is so important, let me acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we prioritize in Youth Voice, Youth Vote, or the organization, is making sure that we come up with a set of community agreements within the organizers of the program, the ones that were making the rule book and the different steps of participatory budgeting, but also in voting spaces, right? So we ensure that it's a calming space. It is a space where we welcome new ideas, but we also appreciate the ideas. You're not just like, oh yeah, that was a great idea, moving on, right? You're like, I love your perspective, right? I might disagree. How can we meet in a middle ground, right? Or maybe it's not a middle ground. Maybe I'm more towards you. Maybe you're more towards me, right? But the goal is always to make the community better. Every single person that enters a space has that goal of making the community better. And I think that makes all the difference in volunteerism and in any kind of work. If you have that passion of, I want to make the space that I'm entering better. I want to leave the space better than the way I found it. You're going to reach the stars and more. And that is what we've been doing. And it's been such an honor.
So talk about your version in South Dakota of reaching the stars and more.
So as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of participation on my side in like school activities, but also a lot in local government. Right, earlier this year, I had the opportunity to serve as a page in the South Dakota House of Representatives. And like everybody else that I ended up paging with, some individuals had no idea of government going like into the week and could come out and explain to you the entire legislative process. And I think like bouncing off of the idea that Kim had, when there's not a seat at the table for young people, then the opportunity to be heard, to create that change simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So whether it's in South Dakota, Oregon, anywhere in the United States and the world, if we have to create that opportunity for people to reach the stars. And that's the foundation for any passion project, community service project, or change to be made.
Yeah. And I think as you talk, I think both of you it has become very clear to me why the Bezos Family Foundation
Thank you.
gave, sort of plucked you out and said, oh my gosh, these are such remarkable young women. And so much a part of our future. I like the idea of visioning in the future, though.
Yeah.
Sort of, work on the here and now, but what is the next generation going to
Exactly.
prioritize?
Yeah. We hear a lot about older generations prioritizing us as the young people, right? But many of us have younger siblings, or we have family members that are beginning their families, right? And although right now we're seeing them as a life being developed, they're going to grow up to be voters, and they're going to grow up to be policymakers and be in the workforce and buying homes or not buying homes. And we have to keep them in mind, right? Just because we may be having an unhoused crisis in Portland right now does not mean that in 20 years we will be, right? Hopefully the work that we're doing now helps relieve that crisis. But keeping it open and making sure that the rule book that we constructed can be updated every year as needed, as it's not something that's set in stone, it's something that's for us right now. And the principles will continue, keeping future generations in mind. It's one of our core values. It's not just a goal, it's a core value to keep in mind all the time. And something that I really appreciate about even the Bezos Family Foundation is something that a lot of volunteers struggle with are barriers, right? And I know I come from an immigrant household, right? I would have never come to Aspen, Colorado and been here at the Ideas Festival ever in my life if it wasn't for the Bezos Family Foundation. Giving us both this opportunity to come. You come from a rural state, right? I come from a small city right outside of Portland. And that's such an important thing when it comes to volunteering, is taking away the barriers and including youth, as you said. A lot of youth want to be involved, but there's barriers stopping them from coming. And I appreciate that so many people of older generations keep that in mind.
So as you look to your future, I feel like I'm talking to a future policymaker. So you need to tell me, is your focus on policy going forward? Is that focus something you do as an engaged citizen, or do you imagine yourself running for office?
I do it as an engaged citizen. Everything that I do, I'm overly involved in my community. Anyone will tell you that, but I don't do it. I do it to make my community better, right? I don't do it for college applications or to look good on paper. I do it because my community needs it, and it's something that I love, right? If my life drives me if I become a policymaker, that's okay with me, right? But that's not my life goal. My life goal is to make a change in my community the way that I can and empower other people to do the same, like Breanna here.
So, for example, a member of Congress represents communities. And so having that individual who is deep in community in those roles can be very, very powerful.
It's very true.
But also really good at the art of collective decision making, which is what is often missing. That's where we get in trouble. So you're head of a club of future entrepreneurs. So tell us about your future.
Well, oddly enough, business isn't really what I want to go into.
Oh.
It is policy making,
Oh my
serving
gosh.
in the House of Representatives in DC, because seeing the power that your voice can have to create that change within communities around the world, and specifically in the United States for that position, it lights me up inside, because there's so many problems that Kim and I are going to be the ones that have to find the solutions to.
Right.
Whether it's climate change, gun violence, issues with homelessness, that's on our plates to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And inequality is a big piece in figuring out how to have an opportunity for all Americans to be part of the economy.
100%.
Yeah. But what's great about our system is that people go into policy from a set of other experiences, and you're building those experiences right now.
Because you have to have that representation. If you don't understand the issues that are around you, you don't know how to address them either as a policymaker.
So Kim, I'm just going to ask you, what would you, if you were speaking to the next class of Bezos scholars, what would you advise them on? What would you say about what to expect if you're selected, or the qualities that the Bezos Family Foundation is looking for?
I think I would tell them to be their authentic self. I think them being their authentic self is what got them here. So they need to continue doing that every step of the way. And I think I'd also let them know that there's a lot of walking, so be prepared. But the food is amazing, and the people that you meet are amazing. There's opportunities to connect with such amazing people at every step of the way. Yesterday, I was in a shuttle back to my hotel, and I connected with these amazing men who immigrated from Colombia and now working in a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles. And I didn't get their information, but just those 5 minutes of conversation kept me up thinking. And I tell them to bring a notebook and be ready to write, because there's so many great ideas flowing through the air.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you look to future Bezos scholars, what would your advice be?
Never be afraid to speak up to change the world. I think so often, like, being that the Bezos, the foundation, it looks towards individuals that have been trying to create the change, but maybe haven't had that platform in the past, is so important, because never in my life again will I get an opportunity like this to be in Aspen. Like Kim said, to see the people, to talk with the people. So to take advantage of every single opportunity you're given to bring you wherever you end up going in the future, right now, it's so important.
Take these relationships you're building and don't leave them behind. Don't leave them behind. Because for people in my generation, it's a privilege to learn from and interact with folks from your generation. So keep us in mind.